Susie, welcome to the Astroben podcast. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me. It's so great to finally meet you.
No, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to chatting to you for a while now. And let's just dive straight in, if that's okay. Um,
Yeah, of course.
so, can you let's start with your space industry career. So, what inspired you to pursue a career in the space industry? Do you have a origin story at all?
Yes, my lore, if you will, is my dad is actually a mechanic, and he was really interested in space from a young age, and was really interested in engineering and mechanical engineering. He's not an engineer, but he always made sure that me and my twin sister knew how to make sure our cars were, oil changed, tire changed, everything like that, to make sure that we were good in an emergency situation. Usually, I can't, you know, break down a car and rebuild it from scratch or anything like he can, but I can get by. And so that really put me in like an engineering mindset when I was very, very young. And for those who don't know, I have a twin sister, identical twin. So she and I are both mechanical engineers, and we went to school together to get our bachelor's of mechanical engineering. But I started in a community college, which I highly recommend if that is the route that you want to take. I did 2 years at a community college and graduated with an Associate's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. And in between me going from my community college to my university, which was the University of Kentucky, I actually got my first NASA internship at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. I admittedly did not know that there was a NASA center in Alabama until I applied. Because, like many of you, I'm sure you're like, yes, NASA, Houston, Florida, sometimes DC comes to mind, maybe. And usually that's it. Or if you're one of the more versed people, it's Houston, Florida, JPL, and that's it. And there's
Yeah,
no
that's what I
other
would say.
yeah. So there's actually 11 NASA centers, which a lot of people don't even know. But one of them is in Huntsville, Alabama, which is where I hail from. I'm actually from Kentucky, but I live here, and I've lived here, 8 years now. But I had my first internship at NASA in 2016. I was just a regular intern, had the best summer of my life. Let me tell you, I have never been around so many like-minded engineering individuals in my entire life, because I had just come from a really small town in a community college where I was one of 4 engineering students at the time. We all graduated together. We all took all of our classes together. And of course, the only girl, because of course. And then I went back to school. I started at my university, the University of Kentucky, for my bachelor's of mechanical engineering. I went back to NASA the next year as a NASA co-op. So NASA has a co-op program called Pathways. And I was a NASA Pathways student from May 2017 to when I graduated in May of 2019. So I took 4.5 years technically to get through school, but I took a semester off. So it actually took me 5 years from starting college to graduating with my bachelor's. And that whole time I took NASA summer 2017, spring 2018, summer 2018, graduate 2019, and then I started full-time at NASA July of 2019. And then I was at NASA until 2022. And I had several jobs when I was at NASA. And then now I moved to the company that I work at now, which is not government. It is in the private space industry. And I'm a payload engineer for their lunar program.
Fantastic. Well, tell me about a payload engineer, because I imagine it's sort of loading things onto satellites, which is definitely not what it is.
So you're not totally wrong. Just to be clear, that was a really great guess, especially if you don't know a lot about what payloads are in a general sense. But I think we kind of have to go back a little further to what is considered a payload. And there's a lot of things that be considered a payload, but to break it down in the most simplest of terms is that anything that's science that goes into space is considered a payload. Whether that's, a human, because we do science experiments on the astronauts on the ISS, and that work is considered payload work. We can do any kind of science. We can do satellite science. We can do the Voyager ones, the 1 and 2, they were considered payloads, and they went way far into deep space because they're doing science, right?
Hmm.
So when I was at NASA, I was a in-space manufacturing payload developer, that's a huge title. But basically what it breaks down to is my first 3 years at NASA, I was a 3D printing engineer. I did metal and plastic 3D printing for the ISS, for the SLS, the RS-25, for wind tunnel testing, for basically anything that NASA as a whole kind of needed 3D printing. We were one of the main R&D labs for 3D printing at NASA, and it was really great. And then I moved from that job into payload development for in-space manufacturing specifically. So I did 3D printing on the ISS though, and we were talking about doing new things, not necessarily like the wrench that you've seen, them holding up in the air where it's like small, but it's a small like AB filament, something really easy, quote unquote easy, like nothing on the ISS is easy, right? But something more easy. So we were talking about doing like metal printing on the ISS and how we would like bake out the binders and all of that stuff. So I was on a team that their whole goal was to figure out how can we do this? And we were working with other commercial companies, which was a really cool opportunity to see like how the other side lives, not on the government side, but on the other side. And then after that, I became a flight controller for the ISS. So I was doing payload operations controlling. So there's a ton of flight control positions, which I'm sure most people are aware because there's people living on the ISS 24/7. So we have to make sure that those people can be safe and live and do the science that they need to. So there's an operations center in Houston. And then there's a payload operations center in Huntsville. And I was an operations controller. And the operations controller, what that we do is we make sure that the astronauts do their science safely, correctly, and efficiently on the ISS. So we don't talk to them. We have a role specifically for talking to them. That's PACOM. So we say, okay, you're doing this procedure today. This is how we're going to do it. These are the things to watch out for that are safety hazards. And then we tell the pod, all right, we're good to go. And then we go, all right, let's do it. So we watch and follow along while the astronaut does their science on the station. And then if there's an issue, we'll call out, hey, like, beware of this or watch out for that, just to make sure that everything is safe. If there is a safety issue, that role is the OC. So that was what I was. And if like we had to mitigate problems, if there was ever like any errors thrown, like all of that is the OC. So it was a really big job and really, really stressful. And I really enjoyed the job itself. But the toll that it took on me was not worth it in my own personal opinion. Some people are made to do this job. And I know so many incredible flight controllers that this was it. They loved this. This was their dream job. And I did about a year and 4 months of it. And I was like, wow, nope, I'm good, actually, thanks. So then I quit and I left and I went to the commercial side where I do payload, all around payload engineering. So it's not something specific to I'm doing the operations in space or I'm doing the development only. It's literally everything from talking to the customer to, integrating it onto the vehicle. And I'm doing the entire process right now, which is really exciting. And it's really different than what I've been doing in the past, mostly because I'm a lunar payload engineer and I've never worked anything lunar before now. Everything I'd done previously had been ISS. And there's a lot of different things to consider when you go from, no gravity and people to, the moon and possibly no people, possibly people. Like there's so many different things to consider when you're doing payload science instead of like, oh, the ISS has these set rules, set regiments because it's been up there for close to 30 years. So it's a very huge learning curve and I feel like I'm doing okay. I get really busy and we had to reschedule this a couple of times because I've been so busy. So it's a learning process every single day. And I'm really excited every day to say, okay, what challenge am I going to come up against today? Like it's not like oh my gosh, like what am I gonna do? It's more like oh, this is exciting. Like how can I make this better? How can we improve it the next time that we do this?
That's so fantastic. And you've done so much in such a relatively short space of time. I mean, and first of all, well done on getting, doing what you've done already. And then how did you start your Sci Comm side hustle, if we can call it that? Because
Yeah.
if you haven't seen
Um,
this thing, you should follow Susie on at AstraSue. And I'll
yeah.
put these all in the show notes. But
Oh,
what
thank
was the
you.
what was the sort of motivation for that? Was that based off your experiences with NASA and other companies?
Yeah.
You
So
seem to have found a niche there.
yes, no, and it's an incredible niche. And if you follow me and it has like the suggested people that are like, that are associated with like what the same kind of things that I do. Um, I had no idea that there was this kind of community out here on Instagram. To be fair, just just to throw this out there, I've actually been an influencer for an influencer. I hate that word. For a very long time, and I actually started the account that is now at AstraSue in 2014 as a nail art influencer,
Ah,
which is like, wow, a lot of people wouldn't expect that. Um, but we used to have a huge nail art community on Instagram back in the early days, like 2012, 2014. And I ran that account as Nail Art Ooh La La, which is a silly name, but it is what it is, until 2020. And I had made all these friends. I actually just recently, not recently, but in 2021, I got to meet one of my friends that I had met in 2014 on the internet. She was my first internet friend. And now we are actually in real life best friends. Like it's so crazy how the internet does this thing where it makes you feel like you have a sense of community in people that you've never met. Or like
yeah,
how right now you're in England and I'm in Alabama and we're talking right now on this awesome podcast just because you reached out and here we are. Like this is so cool. I love
exactly.
the internet is really a really cool place. There's a lot of bad things, but overall, generally, it's a pretty okay situation. But in 2020, like many of you, I was bored to death in the pandemic. And so October of 2020, I decided that instead of trying to revamp my nail account, because that part of my life was over. I had been working at NASA for like 3 years at that point, since I had started my co-op. And I was like, I think I'd like to do science communication, because I had another friend who lived locally that also was doing science communication, and she was doing some really cool stuff. And I was like, wow, this seems like something like a niche that I could really, you know, help with and grab onto and like help the community and find my own space in this community. So I changed my name after much deliberation, many, many weeks of talking to my nail art friend, who is now my in real life best friend, about the name change, like what kind of content I was going to make. Like, am I doing this because I want to? Am I doing it because I'm like, I don't know what to do with the account? There was a lot of back and forth, and she really helped me a lot, so much. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how I started, was realizing that I was in a very specific niche where I worked in a lab and I was the only girl. And I was like, wow, sometimes this isn't so great. And I had a really tough experience in college. And a lot of my, rough experiences, they came from college because I was a girl in mechanical engineering at a big university. And like my whole senior group, we had like 400 students graduating with us. And I remember one time in one of our senior design classes, I counted how many girls there were, and there was 33, including me, out of 400. So it's already like an isolating place. So if you're able to make this sort of like spot for yourself in the internet and also help do STEM outreach, which is always something I've been like passionate about. Before I did like this whole account, I was talking at a conference at my community college that I went to. They always had us back. I did when I graduated with my community college, my twin and I did we were the student speakers. Like, this is something that I've always like liked to do. But now I had this opportunity to do it on kind of a really large scale, kind of just very suddenly. So it was really great. And I've met some of my best friends right now are people that I've met like on the internet. Like, it is such a crazy thing to say that out loud as like an almost 30-year-old female. But like, some of my best friends are also people who had the same experience as me, where they've had this very small niche. They were the only girl around, and they were passionate about STEM and STEM outreach. And we all just kind of, glued together, like Astro Alexandra and Lauren the Savage and Joan, your female engineer, and Katia, Cat Voltage. Like, there's just a million people out here that are just incredible, and they're all doing incredible work. And the only place that we've been ever, like, this would have ever happened is because of the internet, right? Like, it's so crazy to even just be like, yes, my closest female friends are all women in STEM. And like, the Galactic gal is incredible. And like, when I first started, she was always like, hey, how you doing? Like, I don't know. I could talk about how much I love my friends literally all day long. Like, you'll have to stop, like, cut me off, because
No,
I could literally
I love it. I love it. And people like the Galactic Gal I've had on the podcast, there's just such there's just such an array of young women who are doing this, which really breaks the mold of like traditional old school, guys in suits and bow ties, not naming anyone in particular. He's also been on the podcast, but it's really creating a new brand of people who young girls especially can look up to and hope to emulate. And I saw you guys at like some sort of function at
the Space Gala.
The Space Gala, and it was like a who's who of all these people I follow on Instagram all in one room. It was quite crazy.
Yes. Exactly. That's kind of the point of the Space Gala. And the Space Gala is hosted by Reinvented Magazine, which is owned by Kaylee Looney, and her @ is Kaylee Stems, like STEM, like STEM, and she has this nonprofit, Reinvented. And in 2022, she was just like, you know what? I'm going to throw a ball. I'm going to throw a ball for all the women in STEM. And that was the first year that she'd ever done it in. It was amazing. That was the first time I met Camille in person, the Galactic Gal. It was the first time I met Astro Alexandra in person, and she is literally, they're both two of my closest friends now. It is crazy how this has happened, where we were just like, I think all of us are just going to go to this event. And then we did, and now we're just best friends. It's cool, whatever.
Like Camille has just sort of announced she's being a full-time Sci Commer, which is amazing. And I think she's addressing a real issue, which is the why. And I think that is definitely something that a lot of people in the space industry are pretty bad at doing. Is demonstrating to the wider public why we do what we do.
I agree. And if you like read comments on any of NASA's posts across any of their social media, even on their blogs, on the website, you understand why needing to know that why is so important, because the general public is scientifically, we're not there, So we need people like Astro Alexandra and Camille and Cat Voltage, who have like dedicated their full-time energy to making sure that these things that we are being told on TikTok, on Instagram, even on like blogs. Like, a lot of people feel like they can trust anything on the internet, and people to understand that just because somebody can make a video doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about.
Absolutely. How do you tailor your content on your channels to resonate with young girls and encourage their interests in STEM? Do you have a sort of grand plan or strategy, or is it just sort of based off your own experiences?
So a lot is based on my own experience. I tend to, while Astro Alexandra and Camille give highly, highly, highly technical content, I tend to veer a little bit more on the fashion side, which seems a little counterintuitive maybe, but a big part of my journey in STEM has been the fact that I have never wanted to give up that girly, fashionable side of me, which was a struggle when I worked in a 3D printing lab for 3 years. So it was like really cute t-shirts and the cutest ESD boots I could find, which was like slim pickings, honestly. So when I moved from that role, when I was able to like come into a less manufacturing role and more of an engineering or systems engineering role, which is like kind of what I do more now, I made it like a big effort to make sure that is something that I didn't lose from myself. And in fact, this is a story that I have on my Instagram, but it's something that I love to tell. I actually got my job at NASA because I always wore red lipstick. So that sounds really weird. But I made a video for National Lipstick Day about how when I ended my internship, one of my friends, so at NASA, when you finish your first, like, there's like they have a, I don't know how to describe it, but it's basically like once you are full-time, right after you start, you get to do something called a professional internship program. And it's not an internship, you're full-time, you're a civil servant, but you get to go to other groups and work for them for a little bit, and then you give a presentation at the end. It's like a cool way to be like, hey, I tried a bunch of other stuff, I really love my job, put me back in the group that hired me, basically. So one of my friends from the internship summer, who was full-time already, was giving his presentation. And so he invited me because I was visiting on that Friday, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, of course, I'll come support you. This is so cool. And I wore my red lipstick, and I had worn red lipstick almost every single day the entire internship. So it was like, people noticed, because that's not usually something that a young woman in STEM does. Just saying. So after the presentation, the guy who was the head of engineering, who I did not know, came up to me and was like, I remember seeing you this summer as an intern. And I was like, yeah, I'm planning on applying to the Pathways internship, which was their co-op program. And I want to do this with my career and this with my career and whatever. And that was it. I didn't even remember the guy's name, which looks really bad on me now because he became like a huge part of my career and he's one of my closest friends now. And so I left and I was like, oh, that was kind of cool. I got to meet somebody, and I was telling my boyfriend, now husband at the time, like, oh, I met this guy. He was like, oh, make sure you apply to the Pathways jobs, and I didn't think anything of it. Once I got my Pathways full time, I actually ended up in a lab working with that guy's son. So I know, it was so weird. I was like, hey, do you know this guy? And he was like, oh yeah, that's my dad. I was like, oh, okay, that's really cool. I was like, I think he got me my job here at NASA. And he was like, oh yeah, no, he went straight to the Pathways office and was like, we need to hire Susan Martínez, or my maiden name, Susan Barber, like at any cost. Like, you have to get her here. And I was like,
Wow.
well, it felt so special, but I didn't know any of this until I was like about to be full-time. It was so interesting how it worked out. But yeah, I always say that lipstick got me my job at NASA. In a way,
No, that's a great story, and I love the fact that you kind of just embracing your passions. I think that's the only way you can really get anywhere in life, is by just shamelessly following your passions. Nails in space. For me, it's venue. For me, it's venue space and outer space. It's the same kind of thing. It's like you just have to not try and overthink it and think, how can I fit into this ecosystem? You just got to do what you love.
And I feel like early in women's careers is when they lose that individuality of themselves, especially women in engineering, women in STEM, women in manufacturing specifically, because you're thrust into this like guy's world, right? Engineering school is different because there's usually other women around, but when you're like, if you go straight from engineering school to like a manufacturing job, you're usually the only girl around. And like I said, when I was younger going into this, there was very limited PPE options because they're all made for men. Now they're a lot better. Like Xena Workwear has some of the best women's steel toe shoes that I've ever seen in my life. So if I had been like back then, I would have been like, yes, I want these shoes. This is what I need. But I didn't have that option, So now there's more options a little bit, but even then, it's hard for young women to ask for those things, right? Like I want to, not lose this part of me, but I don't know how to ask my male boss for, hey, can we buy these shoes that are designed for women because they're better for my feet. They look better. I will like them better, because that seems, ridiculous, but not ridiculous, right? So women's shoes in like this specific instance, men's shoes actually in a smaller size can hurt your feet. Like especially like the knuckle part, because the steel toe box is like too long for like women's toes. So like that's something that Xena has addressed, which is great. But like I had men's steel toes, so like the same kind of issues keep arising, and I would not have felt comfortable to be like, hey boss, like, can you get me these specific shoes instead? Because they're made for women. I was very much of the mindset like, I am here because I am a good engineer. I am no different, which is the correct mindset, but it doesn't mean you're not allowed to be different. And I had to like take a step back and like look at myself and like my career and be like, is this what I want out of this? Like, do I want to just become like one of these guys, you know, like, and I was losing my femininity. I was losing myself. I was losing my, you know, my passion for like fashion and makeup and that kind of stuff until I kind of just took like a step back and I was like, oh, wait, no, I don't want that. Like, I don't want that at all. Like, we need to make a space where women feel like they can be themselves and still be valued for themselves as engineers, which is a lot of what my page is about. And I do the technical stuff as well. It's just, I can't talk a lot about what I do. So it's really hard to be like, yes, here is work content. Like, I can't do that, you know?
No, I
And
get
NASA
it.
was a little more lenient on that when I worked there. And like, it's just the difference between like government and private, right? Because everything the government does for NASA, at least, is public. And like, they literally publish about it 1-2 days after whatever discovery happens or announcement happens, you know, and private companies are not like that. So it's a little
No,
different. I've had to tailor my content in that way as well.
no, sure. And what do you think about the Artemis program? Because
Oh,
I was just thinking as you were saying about, you know, the fact that when there was the Apollo spacesuits, you know, they just had one size glove, right? Because it was
yeah.
all
And they were
men
massive.
basically the same size, and now, you know, such a small thing like having different size hands, you know, is it's so obvious to us now, but then they were probably saying the same sort of things, like, why do we need smaller hands? Well, because there was no women astronauts, obviously.
Yeah.
So
And
what is Artemis doing around sort of gender equality and diversity differently,
yeah,
do you think?
so we all very much well know that Artemis 2 is going to have the first woman to the moon and the first Black man to the moon, which is, I am all about. Those two astronauts that were selected for that I'm huge fans of both of their work, especially Victor Glover. I met him when I was in Houston, and he's just the nicest person. He's so sweet. And he's just awesome. But I know for a fact that they are making accommodations for like the spacesuits, of course, is like, that's a huge thing that they're improving now. Did you remember when they did the all women spacewalk?
Yes, and they couldn't wear the same gloves at the same time or something.
Yes, exactly. That was exactly what I was going to say. They had to delay it because it was supposed to happen earlier. And they had to delay it until another resupply mission came up and brought another set of gloves because they only had one small enough size. And it is actually dangerous. And this is the same situation with PPE, right? It is actually dangerous for you to wear the wrong size of protective equipment. It truly is, especially when it comes to like gloves or machining, you know, gloves in terms of machining and all of these kinds of things. Having to do with, you know, finger dexterity. Like, you have to have things that actually fit you. And shoes. Shoes are a big one. Some of the other pieces, like the body part, can be adjusted to fit a wide array of things. But hands, or like gloves and like shoes, are so important, especially when you're trying to, I don't know, not drift off into space and grip the side of the International Space Station. You know,
Little
things like
things like
that.
that.
You know, little things, chill little things like staying alive outside in space. So I think that NASA has been learning a lot through the ISS, which, I mean, of course, we're learning a lot through the ISS. That seems, you know, something that doesn't need to be said. But I just mean in terms, not just science, in terms of life in space and what it's going to take to make sure that people don't go crazy when they're on the moon or on Mars in the future. Like fitting into suits. What are the capsules going to be like? And I think that SpaceX has actually helped a lot with their suits and stuff from the Dragons, because those suits
Hmm.
are much more flexible isn't the right word, but they're a lot more interchangeable about pieces and parts and things like that than the traditional
Yeah,
NASA
they're
suits were.
a bit more modular, and also they
Yeah,
look better as well, right? They look how you
they
imagine
do.
a space suit in 2024 to look.
Yeah. If you've seen For All Mankind, I always laugh. Have you seen For All Mankind? first of
No, I
all?
haven't. Do you know what?
Okay.
I need. I've got so many space TV series that I need to catch up on. So
So I'm
it's
not
on
going
my
to
list.
spoilers. Not no spoilers. But when they are on another planet, even in the early 90s, right? Their suits, their spacesuits are still exactly the same. And I was like, if that is not the most accurate thing they could have done to represent NASA, then I don't know what is. Like everything is basically the same. And that's kind of how it feels right now. I'm really excited to see what Axiom comes up with for their spacesuits because they won the spacesuit contract for the Artemis missions. So that's going to be really cool. I'm excited for NASA to finally get like a spacesuit upgrade.
It's a super exciting time. I was just going to ask about, because I didn't realize you were a twin, and
I
you've been
am,
sort of
yeah.
you've been quite close to the ISS, and I've had Scott Kelly on the podcast before. Like,
No way.
could you imagine doing something like that with your twin, like a sort of twin study? Where what have you thought about that before? And would you be the
Yes,
one in space?
yes, yes, and yes. I have talked about this with so many people. About Einstein's twin paradox, right? And if you've seen Interstellar, like about the time travel and everything like that, and you'll never know, right? And then we had the opportunity to do Mark and Scott in space, but then they both went to space, and so we can't have like a true, one stays on the Earth and one goes to space. I would do it in a heartbeat. Um, Fun fact though is my twin actually works at the same commercial company I work for. So
Oh.
she's also like in the space sector as well, doing a more traditional mechanical engineering role, but she's still like in space. And she's like, no, I don't want to. I don't. Nope, I'm good. But I would go. I would go. I'd
Okay,
love to
so
see what it was like.
you've got your roles and responsibilities
Yes,
then, if that comes up.
absolutely.
Well, look, it's been so great to chat to you. I was just wondering, to finish off, what message would you like to listen to listeners with regarding the importance of encouraging girls to pursue STEM education and careers, and how can they support advocacy efforts through
Yeah.
you and your pages?
I I always I do a lot of like outreach things. I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of talks and stuff. And there's always a question that I get asked, and it is honestly my favorite question to answer. So nice. But my advice is always we need women in STEM. We need you. If you're listening to this and you're a young woman in STEM, we need you specifically because only you can be you. I have a twin sister. We are not the same. We don't have the same brain. We don't have the same interests. We don't even have the same job or career trajectory or anything. She is needed in her role, and I am needed in mine. You can only be you. And it is such a simple but effective message because excuse me, a lot of young women get discouraged because they're like, what can I offer? What can I offer? You can offer your own specific way of solving problems. The way that you look at a problem is not going to be the way that somebody else looks at a problem. It is going to take you and a unique set of solutions to come up with results. And that is something that we need so much more of, especially coming from NASA, where the majority of people you work with are men. And I've been in meetings where I've looked and said, well, why don't we do it this way? And all of them go, oh, I didn't think about that, right? So if you don't think that your brain or your mindset or your problem solution orientation is needed, you're wrong. We need you because you are you.
And I couldn't think of a better way to end the episode. Susie,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. This was awesome.